Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for joining me. Today we're taking another look at Die in the Dungeon, a game all about dice mitigation, dice rolling and chucking, exploring the cavernous depths of your lair that you've been transported to, and doing everything you can to swing a club and knock out some pesky heroes who have found their way in, or adventuring parties who think that it is your time to be conquered. No, sir, my gold shall remain my own. Now, instead of using the humble, and I've heard it said handsome Quackalope, to explore the dungeon and destroy the adventuring parties like we did in the last gameplay, if you haven't checked that out yet, swing over there. It's a good time. Today we're going to swing in with Mr. Troll O'Bones. So we're going to be using the troll with a handsome club and a handful of bone-carved dice to see if we can handle what is a slightly more difficult dungeon. Now, along with that, we're also going to give you a little bit of a preview. So if you're not here for a straight-up gameplay, the first few minutes of this video are going to be going over 3 of the core mechanics or elements that I think are worth diving into, taking a more specific look at when it comes to Die in the Dungeon. Oh, and I think I got most of the things right in the last gameplay video, but I should probably go ahead and fix that, right? I think a few of you noticed. If you don't know what I'm talking about, again, there's a Quackalope video that you should go watch. Whatever the case, the 3 elements that I want to dive into before getting into the ruckus gameplay are going to be the way that Die in the Dungeon handles dice mitigation. I want to talk a little bit about the monsters or the creatures we're fighting. In this case, I suppose they can be labeled heroes, but heroes is a very context-specific term. And then I also want to talk about the way that you actually build and design your dungeon, because there's 2 stages to this. There is either the sort of adventuring mode where the dungeon scales for every encounter that you have, or you could actually do a 2-player mode, or you could dive into the dungeon with your own custom-built challenge. Before we get into all of that, I first off want to say, if you're brand new to Quackalope, thank you for joining us. Super glad you're here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. We put out new videos every single week, gameplay reviews, unboxings, Kickstarter previews, a whole mix of stuff. So I'd hate for you to miss it. And along with that, I want to thank Fundamental Games for sponsoring this preview video. Their support and other publishers' support really goes a long way in allowing us to produce the quality of content and the quantity of content we do here on the channel. So, with all that being said, let's go ahead and start diving into the preview of this game. And I read the overview flavor text in the last game that I played. I think it's only appropriate now to set the stage and then read Troll O'Bones' specific flavor text, because, like I've said in the past, this is, in fact, a Quackalope video, and if there's flavor text to be had, then we will set the context. Now, the stage for this environment. The Die Master has transported us here into the cavernous depths. With die-shaped stones and walls, we are not as powerful as we once were, and we really just want to get back to marauding and controlling our own lair. But the Die Master has some problems he wants us to deal with, some middling heroes questing to take him down and steal his power or steal his wealth. And so we've been called in to aid, by force, not by choice, but we are, in fact, a giant beast, and so to aid we will. And the Die Master has promised that once we have defeated the conquering heroes, in this case, the 2 questing adventuring parties who are on the edge of our door, once we have smashed them into oblivion, leaving their remains scattered across the hallways and splayed across the walls, we will then be sent home, or potentially to a deeper, darker cavern. I'm not sure. From what I can tell, it seems like the Die Master is mainly doing this for his own amusement, like some weird gladiatorial combat system, just to see how long and how far we can survive. But let's set the stage for Mr. Troll O'Bones here. The big guy was hunting in the swamps for more bones to carve into dice before being summoned to the dungeon, and he's not happy about it. He has abilities that help him recover health and avoid damage. So, that is my big guy. We're a little dumb, a little bit of a brute. We have some scars and problems, but at the end of the day, people who are running around and questing into the cavern, I mean, rogues and mages and clerics, they still have bones. they just take a little bit longer to clean and prepare to carve into dice. So I feel like his main objective can still be accomplished, even though we're in a brand new uncomfortable place and we'd rather get back to the swamp. So, with that stage sent, I'll go over his special abilities and cards here in just a moment. Let's talk about the mechanics of this game, starting first with the way that it utilizes dice mitigation. Now, starting from the ground level, this is a dice rolling game. I mean, it is on the nose about its dice theme, or maybe not so subtly on the nose about its dice theme throughout all of the design, the artwork, and the gameplay. You are using various sets of dice to indicate your stats, to upgrade and buff yourself, even to resolve attacks and resolve experience points, or kind of dice points that you gain along the way. So there is an element of luck when it comes to dice rolling. That is sort of the mechanic of dice, right? And the higher numbers you get, or the way that those scale, your luck either increases or decreases. And Die in the Dungeon, first and foremost, plays with that mechanic of increasing or decreasing your die-specific sets. You see, down here along the bottom, I have set my D20 on time. That tracks how long I have to adventure in this cavern. And I've set my D4 down here on my ability points. Those scale and continue growing, and they allow me to do my special attacks. But everything through the center here, my might, my agility, my magic, and my health, I have used the rest of a collection of dice, regular D&D dice, to set the stage for what my levels are going to be. I have the D10 here on might, the D12 on agility, because I thought it would be funny to have a fairly strong but incredibly, surprisingly fast ogre or troll. I've set a D6 on my magic because he can use magic, but it's a little bit more brute force than otherwise specified. And I've set health at 8 because I want to be beefy, but I also know that I can regain some health along the way. So I have equipped myself. As I play through the game, if I gain certain tokens that upgrade my dice beyond where they can satisfy, so if I upgrade my might from a D10 to a D12, I will physically swap that die, resulting in a higher potential roll for whenever I do might attacks. The same for magic and the same for agility. These different heroes that we'll talk about in just a moment require different types of abilities or types of attacks in order to hit their weak spots. And so strategically using these and upgrading certain abilities or upgrading certain die or leaning into a strategy will help you mediate and slowly work your way through this dungeon. So that's the first stage of dice mitigation. You're actually playing with and using the dice to upgrade and change the odds in or against your favor depending on what you're facing down. You get to make a strategic choice around ticking down your health or ticking down some of your stats. And then other tiles or other cards throughout this process will affect those as well, either giving you a buff or making you reduce them. If I decide that a D12 is as high as I ever want to be with agility when I roll my agility attacks, I can go ahead and start taking damage to my agility, slowly getting more and more slow, but not actually becoming wounded, right? I'm becoming winded, or I'm getting kind of some scratches and cuts that restrict my movement but don't actually do lasting physical damage. But as I reduce that stat, the opportunity for me to gain and upgrade that to a full D20 when I roll becomes less and less. So I have to be careful and purposeful about the way that I equip and then utilize my dice. We also have some dice mitigation when it comes to these dice over here. These are your experience points, and they will level and give you a boon for the more adventuring parties you destroy. For every basic hero you destroy, you will gain 1 pip over here. And as you hit 6 pips, this first level will be a 1, a 2, a 3, and so on and so forth. As you gain those, you can use those at any point to modify any of your dice rolls to give you enough to defeat the adventuring party. So as the game progresses, you gain experience, which then allows you to be purposeful with resolving or correcting some poor rolls. Unless you're like me and you have a history of rolling multiple 1s in a row, we'll see if we can make that happen or not. I'm hoping we don't. So you have set the stage with your dice. You can then use, upgrade, and equip your dice. You can use these dice, your stats, to take damage instead of your health. And you can gain more experience across the course of your adventure that gives you control over the dice that you've rolled. And then finally, you have your ability dice. As this upgrades with every single turn, you will be able to use those points for some special powers, which we'll go over in just a bit when it comes to the Troll of Bones. But just know that every character or creature has a select and unique set of special abilities that they can use that change the way you utilize your dice and change the way you involve people here on the board. For instance, my little Quackalope has a Duck These Dice ability, where I roll my entire handful, one of every type, and if my agility matches with one of the creatures that I'm facing agility, the heroes, again, that's a word that can be used in a variety of contexts. In my context here, the troll, I consider them more like sniveling bags of bones that can be carved into very beautiful dice with the right amount of persuasion? That's what I call my club. Right? Persuasion, right? Let's have a conversation with them. That's what I call my die-shaped rock that I hold in my hand. So, persuasion and conversation. So what I was saying, before I went off on that tangent, is these cards and these abilities give you control or powers that influence the way you're dealing with the people that you're facing throughout the course of the dungeon. So there's also a degree or a level of dice mitigation and dice control there as well. Now, let's swing into the second element that I wanted to touch here before we start on the gameplay, the actual creatures or monsters or bag of bones that we're facing. These bags here, these body sacks, are going to have chaining abilities or effects. This board over here tells me, first off, what their standard effect is when they come out, then what their adventuring party effect is if there is multiple of them in a single group, right? So more than one rogue pairs together, unlocking an extra special ability. And then finally, if they're able to roll above a 10 or a 15 in different cases, there is extra damage or extra effects they take based on the type or the party type that you're facing. And then finally, we have our upgraded heroes here, which are going to be included in the final showdowns, the adventuring parties that we really want to take care of. And they're also going to have their own special set of unique traits and unique abilities. Now, all of this will be on full display as I play the game, so I won't go too deeply into it. I just want to point out that the makeup of the adventuring parties you're facing changes the way you have to deal with every encounter. Having to target certain people first, or weighing the options between getting rid of a fighter, sort of the brute, who is going to be able to use his strength to continue pounding on you, or maybe clearing out the wizard first because that is your weakest trait, and so taking care of the wizard, while you still have some big guys to fight, you're not getting peppered by magic spells which are annoying, to say the least. I mean, my hard, grizzled skin really doesn't get affected by them that much, but every now and then one will tickle or itch or leave a weird rash on my shoulder, and, you know, it really is a bother. I spend the rest of the day walking through the swamp kind of scratching at that rash until it's just an open wound, and it's really not something I want to deal with. So if I run into a wizard, you can bet your bottom dollar that that persuasion is going to have a conversation with him. So, that is the makeup of the adventuring parties, and then finally, let's talk about the dungeon build here. Now, I'm using a in-game pre-designed dungeon, where I've set out the layout tiles, and I've done a mixture of unrevealed tiles here. I'll flip one to show you what they look like, but those unrevealed tiles are going to have different adventuring parties, I'm not going to that one, different adventuring parties and reactions or abilities or events that happen as you move on to them. So while you have a sense of the makeup and how hard it is for a specific dungeon, for instance, in this dungeon, I have 2 adventuring parties to face, and then I have a mixture of level 1 and level 2 tiles. So I know it'll be more difficult than the last adventure I went on, which is appropriate because the Quackalope absolutely crushed on easy mode. So we'll see if the troll is able to do the same here on medium to maybe medium light. I'm not quite sure. There is a level 3 set of tiles, which I didn't include any in. But I have shuffled those tiles and then built this layout or built this grid. There is also, however, the opportunity for you to build your own dungeon, and even the opportunity to do so with a friend, where you are both using one of these different creatures, exploring the same cavern, upgrading or getting to upgrades before your opponent, and trying to take out the adventuring party or both adventuring parties before your opponent is able to. So it becomes a race of who presses their luck and rolls the dice and sees if they can handle it versus who bides their time. doing what they need to prepare and buff, and then going in with a surefire plan to, like I've said before, slam your hammer down on the top of the wizard, crushing him until his head is on his shoes. It's not violent, it's more like a cartoon with bones for the troll. So, that is the setup or the stage here. We've actually went through and constructed this, and you have the opportunity to either follow the dungeon guide, setting up and going through the story, or setting up your own specific dungeon based on the criteria and based upon the persuasion that makes it either as easy or as difficult as you'd like. So all of this is modular and can be played with and experimented with. That being said, I think I'm about ready to go over my special abilities, and then we should swing into this because I'd like to see if I could take care of some pesky wizards, some mighty clerics, some annoying rogues, and I have to say, fairly disappointingly weak fighters, especially compared to me. I mean, look at this guy. I might not have the brains, but I've certainly got a loincloth. So, some of my special abilities here. On my board here I have rolling doubles. You may roll 2 dice for all the dice you roll this turn. Choose the die you would like as your result. Very nice. Now this is going to cost 2 ability, and I can use it as often as I have the resources to pay for it. And then number 4 here, loaded die. Place a d6 on this ability. Set it to 6. You may reduce the value of the die by 1 to modify any die roll, including heroes. There can only be 1 d6 on this ability, and it cannot be replaced until it has been fully used. So this counts down. I'm going to stick a d6 on there for good measure. This will start ticking down, but as I use it, spending 4 of my ability on it, I can actually completely modify a single die result. So that could be a saving grace if I have enough of those by the time I'm hitting one of these adventuring parties. Over here, these are one-time use abilities. Defensive Skin. Prevent all damage that would be dealt by might attacks this combat. Okay, not too bad. Lucky Die. Use this ability when you would make an agility or magic check. You automatically succeed that check. That is good because magic is something where I will need to potentially buff in order to make it through certain sections of this maze. Regenerate. Use this ability anytime to gain 1d8 health points. Very nice. That will potentially be my saving grace, but it is very expensive. And then Defensive Maneuvers. Each of your stat dice gain +3 for defensive purposes this combat. These points cannot be used to modify your rolls. A good way to set the stage for blocking damage if I run into an incredibly hard adventuring party. So, that's what's going on here. Let's go ahead and swing into this. I'm looking at the board here, trying to determine where I want to go in order to upgrade my abilities. Now, each of these tokens are going to give me a buff of 2, and before I run into this adventuring party, it would probably be a good idea to go in a direction that gives me some dice mitigation along the way. These little die minion tokens here will add an additional dice to a count if I need to buff my score. That is also a level of dice mitigation, so I wouldn't mind getting or picking up a few of them. What I'm thinking is I could actually go here and potentially upgrade my health, which wouldn't be bad. However, I like the idea of getting magic a little bit stronger and then getting my agility to a higher level. So I'm thinking I go down, over, up, and around, and then I end by taking on this first adventuring party and then zooming back down to take on this second. I think that's going to be my main approach. So let's start by going down to this tile here. I'm going to take this. This will give me a 2 score, so I move up to 3, and then I also gain 1 because it is that turn, and I lose 1 because I am spending 1 time to go ahead and move. I will then check and resolve this tile. So we have archers. Level 1 tile, roll the die type for each die minion you control. If it rolls a 1 or 2, destroy it. I do not currently control any die minions, so that is good news. And then we are going to be fighting 2 level 1 rogues, which is not the best thing because rogues do have modifiers. Okay, the rogue. For each rogue in the party beyond the first, the heroes perform 1 additional agility attack for the first round of combat. So they're going to attack me twice at a level of 8 this first turn. Agility bonus. If the heroes roll a 15 or higher on the first agility attack in combat round, they perform one more agility attack. Let's start here with their attack. I'm going to stumble into this location, and they're going to, I think, hiding maybe in the top corners of an archway, just waiting for me to lumber through. I'm a little bit confused because I've been teleported into this spot, and I'm mumbling to myself, well, there was pretty bones somewhere. Bones. Bones. And I'm wandering around. I figure I'll find a bag of bones if I just stumble through the darkness a little bit. Their roll is going to start off with an attack of 8. That is because their combined ability score is going to be an 8, and they're actually going to be doing 2 of those, so I'll go ahead and roll 2 at the same time. Now that is going to be going up against my agility, which is a 12, so the odds of them hitting me are low. They can still get a perfect hit, which would be the highest number on your respective dice, which would do damage. A 5 and a 7, neither of those are going to connect. Both of them are going to miss, and then it's going to come over to me. And I think I will potentially go ahead and collect some bones. I'm going to use my agility. Because they thought they could surprise me by hiding up in the rafters, they both dive down, darting as fast as you can see, little black streaks, and I happen, with conversation, to be a little bit faster than they expect. That is a 1. So I think to myself, oh, I'm going to be... Oh, and I actually rolled a d20 instead of a d12. That being said, I'm not going to retroactively do it because that was a critical fail, which means despite me trying to cheat, the dice gods themselves have shut me down. So I think to myself, troll of bones, quick. I like bags of bones. And I jump my hand out thinking I'll be fast enough to grab one of these rogues, and I just brush the corner of his cape, and I'm left holding, grasping a pile of air, and in fact, I'm left moderately distracted by this, just looking at the dust, kind of confused by my own hand as to where the thing that was supposed to be in it no longer is, and they're going to get another chance to attack. So for each rogue in the party beyond the first, the heroes perform 1 additional agility attack for the first round of combat. So this is no longer the first round of combat, so let's see what they're doing. A 6. A 6 is still not going to be able to hit my agility. So he zooms around, swings at me. I see him out of the corner of my eye. And I am going to roll the correct die here so that the die gods do not shame me this time, because I will in fact be as fast as I need to be. Now, this is actually not the die I should be rolling anyway, because I'll be going up against their agility score of 8, meaning I have to beat an 8 to beat them. I'm instead, believe it or not, I'm going to use some magic, because their magic score, their magic defense is only a level of 2. So, frustrated with the lack of catching them, aha, there we go. I look down at my club, and a blue glowing orb at the end of it, a gemstone which I'd found encased or encrusted into the eye of some begotten, forgotten soul, starts to glow just moderately, enough that I can see the space that I'm in, and I swing my hammer, or I swing my club, persuasion, over to the side, carving a very human-like skull shape into the side of the cavern wall. I'm not saying it was a skull, I'm just saying it certainly looked like it. If you were to stumble across this dungeon in the future, you might think to yourself, wow, that rock is very oddly shaped, like the crown of a human skull. You might think that to yourself. Destroying one of these members. This one is going to lash out with an attack, but this is only going to be a d4 because he no longer has his adventuring buddy with him. A 1 is not going to do it, and I think this time I will in fact use agility against him, meaning I'm rolling another d12. I will prove to him that I'm as speedy as I need to be. A 11. An 11 certainly does. He zooms past me, slowing down, distracted by his friend who is now encrusted into the wall, and I grab him by the back of his robe, pull him backwards, and sort of just use my fist, the forward momentum of two things coming together, my fist that is holding the die-shaped skull called Conversation, journeys itself through the bridge of his head. So, no concern. At this point, there's no reason to be alarmed. And I will gain 2 pips here leveling me up. And I'll leave that off to the side until I've fully gained all 6 that I need to gain the first kind of dice mitigation. Now, I think I'm going to step over this way and then across, because I want to collect as many of these little die minions as I can. So this is going to be a 8 die minion. That means at any point during a roll, I can add an 8 to modify it. And let's check this stat. Lose 1 might, 1 agility, or 1 time. If you choose not to, move back to the tile you came from. That's actually not bad, because I don't need to go in this direction. I will choose not to lose any of those, and I will remain here. Now, I do need to, I can't tick this up, but I do need to go ahead and tick this down to 18, and then 17, because I'm going to continue moving. So I'm going to move into this tile here. This is going to be a D6 ability modifier. Sorcery. Flip over the tile adjacent to this one from the direction you came from. So I came from this direction. I'm not exactly sure how to interpret that tile, but I think, because this is the same plane, let's flip over this tile, which will just give me some more information on what I might stumble across. And this time I am facing 2 wizards. So wizards are going to have a magic buff, which is bad for me because these guys are going to be very powerful. They're also the ones whose bones I would like to collect the most. So bad, good, positive, negative. You look at it the way you'd like. So here for the wizard. For each wizard in the party beyond the first, immediately lose 1 time point. So I'm going down to 16, which is not the best, but the best news. And then magic bonus. If the heroes hit with a magic attack of 10 or higher while a wizard is in the party, lose 1 time in addition to 1 magic damage. So these guys can slow me down and wound me. So power of 12, that means they're going to be rolling a d12 to do damage to me against my 6, so they have pretty good odds to do some damage. A 1, however, is not going to do it. I stumble into their midst, and they're both sitting there kind of brewing potions and casting spells, and I have surprised them. One of them turns, starting to cast or chant a spell, and before he does, my high agility is going to come into play here. They have a low agility score just of 2, a 9. So as he starts casting or chanting his spells, I actually prevent him from casting any magic because my hand reaches forward, fully covers the bridge of his face, yanking onto his beard, opening his jaw in a way that not only causes him to stop speaking, but also it might have caused him to die. I'm not sure. He couldn't scream, so I couldn't tell if he died or not. However, the jawbone makes a beautiful D4, so I pocket that for a little bit later, and I'm going to set this guy over to the side. The last one is going to roll a D6, doing his best to cast some magic onto me. That is going to be a 6. That is a perfect hit. That does damage. It, however, does not do damage of 10 or higher, so I'm not going to lose the time. I can now lose either 1 magic or 1 health. The maximum magic I can lose while still upgrading my die there is going to be, from this token, is going to be 1. So let's go ahead and take that shot, but then we can't lose any more magic beyond that, or else that tile really doesn't benefit us. So let's see what we can do. We've got to press forward up this way. Oh, I got to make sure I kill this guy. He's now inflicted some damage on me. Let's really do some work. Let's roll this 12 again. High agility, coming in for the win. A 9 is going to be enough. I'm already leaving the cavern when he casts his spell, and I just, without even glancing backward, swing my club behind me, catches him up the chin. I hear a crunch on the ceiling, a rumpled, kind of sloppy shirt or something, I didn't really bother with it, fall onto the ground behind me, and I continue moving forward. Now that is going to gain me 2 more points right here. I'm going to go ahead and I gotta spend this sometime. I can't keep, but I'm gonna spend this and drop down to a 15 progressing through this story. Let's flip this tile. Battle magic. Add the hero's might stat to their magic stat when they attack. So this is concerning as well because we have a wizard and we have a mighty hero. So, wizard, hero, that's going to be the adventuring party. Okay, they're both going to be able to do attacks against me because they are not grouped. They are 2 unique units. Let's start here with the brawny man. He's going to be doing a 5 attack to me because it is might added to magic, not magic added to might. So a level 5 against my D10. I think I'm going to be able to handle this. Rolling a d6. 5 is not going to be enough. Magic is going to attack me now, adding might to magic. So that's going to be 7, 8, 9, 10, rolling a d10. And seeing if he is able to... if he rolls a 10, I will take additional magic damage as well, which could be very bad. I was just telling you, I didn't mean to do it. I wanted to let you know so that when it didn't happen, you wouldn't, you'd have the context. So, we are hit with a magic attack of 10 or higher. We are going to lose down to 4, which means that token is no longer going to be valuable to me. I should have taken it in damage, and I lose a point of health because I did get hit with that magic spell. I am very annoyed at this moment. D12 coming in. Their agility is only a group of 3. And that... So, continuing with their turn, because I stand there dumbfounded that I was actually struck in the face by a magic glowing blue orb. I confused for a moment, thinking that the gem at the tip of persuasion was the thing that hit me. I was like, did I hit myself, or... And it's back to them, starting with a might attack, a 5, swinging again. This time, I'm going to engage rolling doubles when I get the chance, or maybe one of my special abilities, because I've got to spend some of these tokens. So I thought I'd be able to take care of them, though. 5 for magic. 5 for might, rolling against my d10. 2 is not going to hit. Magic. Do I want to do something that gives me defense? I think I should save one of these cards. So let's go ahead and roll that d10 again, seeing if they're able to hit me once more. A 2. A 2 is not going to be able to connect. They used all of their magic during that first cycle. It is my turn. I'm going to spend 2 of my experience point, or 2 of my ability points, to do rolling doubles. You may roll 2 dice for all dice you roll this turn. Choose the dice you would like as the result. Spoiler alert, I'm gonna like the dice that murders the mage, because I don't much like the mage. Boom, 11 and 7. I slam my hammer through his clavicle, persuasion doing its job just like it should. And I believe that while the fighter is used to gore and gruesomeness, he must be taken slightly aback by the degree of evisceration my bone club was able to do. He sort of stands there confused and then takes one last mighty swing at me with a d4. That is a 1. That is not going to be able to connect. And I am going to gaze at him and then swing my mighty club one more time, taking the sword that he just swung at me, catching the handle of it as his arm is coming down, redirecting it slightly, and piercing it through his face. For some reason, this troll really likes destroying people through the face. Apologies for all of you that are sensitive to face destruction out there. My sincere condolences to you and your fighter, rogue, wizard, or cleric that exists in D&D or RPG campaigns. The good news is you're typically not facing such a powerful beast when you go through your squabbling adventures. This becomes a 6, meaning I have 1 stat point that can now be used to modify one of my rolls. So that's good news. I'm going to gain 1, I'm going to lose 1 time. We are down to 14, and I'm going to push into this corridor. I get to pick up a d12, awesome, and then magic. Gain 2 magic, upgrade if this exceeds your max. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4. An entire party of 4 mages that I must deal with here. This is actually really bad news. So 2 magic will get me back up to a 6. That does not upgrade my stat, which is bad, because I really needed that stat to be upgraded here in this situation. For each wizard in the party beyond the first, you immediately lose 1 time point. That is going to be 3 time points. I am down to 11. I am running out of time quickly. If the heroes are hit with a magic attack of 10 or higher while the wizard is in the party, lose 1 time in addition to 1 magic damage. So I am feeling very confident as I kind of waddle my way through. I have to squeeze through a crack in the wall. It's a little bit weird, and as I venture out, I see a giant torch-lit and candle-lit cavern with, like, you know how the candle wax drips down like stalagmites? That's sort of how long this place has been used as a sanctuary or a worship center for these mages. And they're standing around in their robes looking up at the great depiction of a hero on the wall, a great sword thrust into the sky. This is where they come to study and spend time in the darkness and get closer with the dark arts that they utilize and bend to their own twisted will. And I sort of bumble in and think to myself, many bags, many bodies, many dice. And I'm ready to swing into this. I do think, however, I'm going to need to look at my abilities. Defensive Skin, prevent all damage that would be dealt by might attacks in this combat. It's not going to work. Lucky Die for magic or ability checks. Okay. Defensive Maneuvers, I think that might be the way to go. They have a total power of 24, so we're rolling a d20. 24 magic, going up against my 6. The odds are not good right now. Now I could spend... No, I can't, because I don't have enough to spend. Defensive Maneuvers may be the best bet. Let's do that. That'll make my d6 a d12. Flipping that, it's going to cost a total of 2, ticking this down to a 1. And let's begin this fight. A D9. That is going to be a tie. That is not going to do damage to me. That was the perfect time to utilize that card. So they turn, all thrusting their staffs out in my direction. This green, foggy smoke starts emanating from them. Clearly they are powering up, but they have not yet hit me. It is my turn to move with my agility. You know how trolls are renowned for their quick thinking and their fast feet. And an 11. An 11 going against their agility score of a 4. I am going to be able to take one out. Now, that was a joke about quick thinking and fast feet. Instead, I simply take Conversation, and I throw him across the room as hard and powerful as my fist can, like a baseball flying and spiraling. It is a perfect fastball, a beautiful arc curving around. The wizard does not know what to expect as it impales him in his chest and carries him back about 12 feet to the back wall. He's still slightly alive, but Persuasion is having an extended conversation with him, and he begins to move less and less as time goes on. We are going to get rid of one of these mages. Now, they have a power of 18, still rolling a d20. I still believe I have this ability, though. Each of your stat dice gains 3 for this combat. Okay, so I still have this ability. That's still in play because we're still in combat. Rolling a die there, a 1, I think, no, a 7, is not going to beat the 9 that they currently need. So they once again, shocked by a Conversation, pinning their friend to the wall, turn back to me, regaining their focus, planning on doing an attack. And I think to myself, that first throw worked so well, and I am not fast enough to get across the room in order to do more damage. I look down at Conversation, and I think to myself, well, this could work. And it does. I throw my bone club and it spins. It wasn't a very graceful throw, but there is a heavy, hard side and a pointed sort of handle side. Well, the pointed handle side, it turns out, is very good at impaling. Need I say more? I don't think so. At this point, I've started running forward, and the wizards are beginning to become more and more concerned. D12 is what they are rolling, doing their best to hit me before time is too late. A 9 is still going to tie. They let out a green lightning bolt in my direction, both getting slightly flustered as time goes on, but it hits the already hardened portion of my skin, the side which I sleep on. In the swamp, you need a kind of crusted over and compact side to your body because it keeps the insects from biting you and keeps the worms from burrowing underneath your layers of flesh while you sleep. And every troll knows a good rest is often needed, especially after you get done journeying through a cavern. So, he doesn't hit me, and I am now running full bore in their direction, rolling again a d12 for my agility, going right up against their abilities. That's a little cocked, but I believe it was a 5. A 5 is not going to be a graceful kill, but it is still going to be enough to take one of them out. I am running as fast as I can as I plow through one, and instead of lifting him up or even, he sort of stands like a cardboard token, and I hit him, and my momentum is so fast, he immediately just goes back and flat, and I feel underneath my feet a squish, crunch, squish, crunch, squish, crunch. And I think to myself, that would have made a very strong and sturdy D20. It is a shame that the bone is now all broken up. I should be more careful next time I murder wizards. But there's one left. Rolling a d6, seeing by the grace of God if he can, in fact, stop this horrific creature, and he cannot. So, let's see if I can finish him off. I'm going to use my agility one last time, because, like I've said in the past, trolls are known for their quick thinking and their furiously fast feet. A 5 is enough, in fact, to grab him as I rush by, throw him about 10 feet at this point, turning him entirely vertical as he journeys on to have a conversation with Conversation, who is still pinned against the wall. Now, I will acknowledge it takes me a bit of time to pick up my club, kind of shake off some of the flesh and robes, and then peel back the sandwich-like encasing of two wizards to retrieve a very damp, skull-shaped dice, which I heft in my hand and continue walking around the room. I know where I was going, and I think I'm still going to continue heading that way. I'm going to move up this cavern here, and we have each hero must be defeated twice this battle. Nice. Okay, so that being said, I'm spending a time moving down to 10. I'm gaining another advanced ability. I gained 4 from that last combat encounter, nearly giving me enough to mediate some more results. And I am facing a fighter, and I am facing a cleric. Now, the cleric is one we haven't read of before. For each cleric in your party beyond the first, lose 1 ability point. You cannot use ability points before this occurs. There is not one beyond the first. And then protection. While a cleric is in the party, they must be defeated first. By any might, agility, or magic attacks, I must deal with this protective spirit before I can take on the fighter. Seems like a reasonable, I'm okay with that obligation. Now, the weird thing is I will have to defeat them twice in this case. So starting here with the fighter, who is going to be rolling a d6, doing his best to weaken me, going up against my 10, so odds are not good. A 2 is not going to be able to do it. The cleric here does not have an attack. Instead, it has a protect action, so it is my turn. D12, and I think I'm going to spend the total that I need, the 2 from here, to go ahead and roll twice and take the result I want, because I want to guarantee a murder here. A 5. A 5 on agility is going to be just enough to damage this cleric. So I see that she is holding a book in front of her, muttering some weird spell that casts a greenish orb around the fighter, and I rush up and try to punch through the fighter's defenses. It doesn't work, so I turn to the cleric, I grab the book, and rip it out of her hands, throwing it against the wall. The spell starts to wane or dissipate, and she begins to nervously mutter again. Fighter here with a d6 swings at me. A 2 is still not going to be able to hit. I easily deflect the blow and regain my focus there on the cleric. Okay. I miss the cleric, giving the fighter 1 additional chance to swing at me to try to take me out. A 2 is still not going to be able to hit. This fighter sucks. He's not very good at his job. I sort of, at this point, look at him and in a very low, rumbly, deep, kind of guttural laugh, I kind of grunt at him and go, and then I roll a 9, and I use the side of my hand to slap the cleric just across the face, spinning her head like an owl's, and she immediately drops into a crumple of robes as if there was never a body inside of it. The cleric is gone. The fighter is now the focus of my attention. Now, he's rolling a d4, so decent odds to hit me. A 2. He's rolling 2s this entire time. He swings and it lands on my shoulder, and I don't even bother to get out of the way at this point. He's just not very effective. I am once again going to be rolling my agility, going up against his 2. A 6. A 6 is going to be enough. I uppercut him once, removing the helmet. He's staring at me wide-eyed, and I can see in his expression that he was not actually prepared to be a fighter. He was just coming... Never mind. I see in his reflection that he at one point was not prepared to be a fighter. The mask was a barrier in some ways to him performing in an excellent fashion, but now that it has been revealed that his face has been ripped off, he realizes that it is now or never. And just like any good hero or any good fighter, from within him comes an emboldened spirit, and he leaves the club where it rests on my shoulder, draws out a blade from the side of his satchel, and stabs me into the side of my chest, really splitting through those ribs. I mean, I can feel where the blade has started tickling the inside of my lung. It is not comfortable. And I am not a very happy troll. So, I'm going to use my agility to remove said object and murder him with it. A 3. A 3 is going to be just enough to remove the blade from the side, and I use it to chop off his hand that is holding that same exact weapon. I kind of grab him by the knuckles, remove the dagger, slice off his hand, and hold it up, looking at it, thinking to myself, I have made a lovely set of miniature D6 from the finger knuckles of a good brazened warrior. And now that that guy has regained my respect, I think he should be turned into dice. That will resolve that encounter. I was able to defeat them twice. I'm going to gain 2 more, making this a 2 dice mitigation token. And now I'm moving into my agility, which is going to raise my agility score all the way up to a 14 D20, which is excellent because that means I now roll higher whenever using my agility ability. So, swing into this location, let's see what we have. Gain 2 time, gain 2 health. Now, I should have spent a health there, so I'd be down at 9, so I'm going up to 11. Let's see where we are. Okay, and 2 health is going to put me at an 8. Now, this doesn't say that I can modify my die by gaining health, but it is one of these indicator tokens. I don't believe I get to upgrade my die from this. I think it's only from these tokens that I can. I could be wrong on that, but I'm not entirely sure. And I gain 1 experience here. Pushing forward, let's check this new tile. Faith Shield. The cleric must be defeated twice this battle. So we have a wizard and we have a cleric. And this is a level 3 tile, which is really very unfortunate. So a level 3 cleric. Where are you? With 6s across the board. That is horrible. And here's what I'm really concerned about. A level 3 wizard. Told you this dungeon would get harder the farther and deeper that I ventured into it. Level 3 wizard with a magic level of 10. They are not grouped, so I don't have to worry about that, but I do have to worry about that magic attack. 10, 16, rolling a d20, doing his best to hit me on a 6. And I only have 1 ability point, so I could do Lucky Die, potentially. I don't think so. A 3. A 3 is going to mean his magic sputters and spurts. He is a nervous cleric, but I have to deal with the cleric first, not the wizard. So, while the wizard is trying to regain his magical prowess, picking up, kind of straightening and tightening the robe of his belt, I am going to have to deal with this cleric. My best bet currently is going to be potentially a might attack of 7 instead of, or a d20 attack against 12. I just got that die upgraded. Let's test out how my newfound agility works. Now, what I didn't tell you is that agility was actually gained by finding a very small pair of boots that I attached to each of my fingertips. And they seem to increase my speed. It's not confirmed. It could just be emotional bolstering, but I like to think that it's the boots on my fingertips that help me run faster. I've seen other people wearing them. It is not, in fact, the boots on my fingertips that help me run faster. As I start moving, I, like a lumbering fool, think that the boots need to be on the ground in order to get their ability. Sadly, I am not a creature that moves well bent over on all fours, so I use my fingertips and I try to run forward, and I ended up just kind of doing a somersault and laying there looking up at the cleric and at the wizard. And by this point, the wizard has started casting her spell. 16, rolling a d20. And she does. She blasts a ray of yellow light deep into my face. I can feel the light from the sunrise seeping into my pores, and it is like poison for my rotting soul. And I take some damage. I think I'm going to go ahead and tick down this to a 7, because that magic may still be able to upgrade my die. So I'm going to take some direct damage to my face. Moving back over here, I now have to attack the cleric one more time. Let's use that agility. Let's use these boots in maybe a little bit of a different fashion. 17. Beautiful. That is going to be enough to take one of these boots. I roll over. I can feel the light blinding into my face, but I oddly remember where the cleric is. So instead of trying to run with these boots of speed, I instead toss one up in the air and flick it over in the direction of the cleric. It zooms off with such speed that it strikes her on his shoulder, and I see one arm drop limp beside him. The wizard attacking one more time. A 9. Now, the one thing I forgot with that magic bonus, I take an additional hit of magic because it was over, which is bad. This one is not. It is still going to hit me. I'm going to take it on my health. So drop down there. I'm going to use the other shoe in the similar fashion to the one that I just used. So let's check this. A 17 is once again going to be enough. I liked the result of that last shoe. I toss this one up into the air and slap it in the direction of the cleric. Again, this time taking out her right leg. She falls down onto a hip, still muttering and casting a spell of protection over the wizard, who is turning back to her and screaming, "No, no, continue, I almost have him." And the wizard may in fact almost have me. A 15 is going to use the blunt end of his staff to rap me across the face, and I feel as he does it, tiny insects or worms burrow into the side of my cheek. I can feel them infesting, sort of digging into the bone, and the pain is searing. And I lose one magic ability, and I lose another health, dropping all the way down to a 5, and I begin to grow slightly more concerned. One more attack against the cleric here. Oh no, that did it in. The cleric, it turns out, who fell onto her side as the wizard does this final strike, begins to mutter and chant, and you feel or see the protection spell seep off of this cleric. And this time, agility versus a 6. I'm so distracted by the insects and the creatures burrowing into the bone of my skull. My eye starts to go dark, and I see a squirming figure go over the front of my visual spectrum, and I am horrified by this. Genuinely, like, me personally, I am horrified by what I'm saying. I'm so sorry to you viewers. And I reach out, trying, but in my confusion and in my daze, one eye blinded by the light, the other blinded by this squirming thing. Instead of reaching for the wizard, I slap across my face, doing my best to rip the creature from the depths of my eye. And the wizard is going again, this time rolling a d10. That is a d12, this time rolling a d10. A 6. A 6 is still going to be enough to hit. She takes her staff, raises it once more, and strikes again across the side of my face. And this time, the creatures that were moving slow seem to gain speed and energy, and I feel a side of my cheek, a seam open up from where they'd encased themselves, as if vines had been planted underneath my face, and they all suddenly burst out and back into the staff. My vision, first off, goes clear as the outside part of my eyelid is thrust forward, and then all I see is darkness and blurry shapes hovering in my periphery. But those blurry shapes can still be identified, and as the wizard moves away, trying to get a more apropos position, I reach a hand out, grab his legs, sling him back and forth against the wall until all I'm holding is a scrap of cloth and a very, very nice leg bone that could be carved into a beautiful D8. And I think to myself, This has been a very effective journey of collecting bones for dice. I think I'm going to move into that far tile there to get that time. I'll lose one to move into there, but you know, it'll still put me above where I am. Or do I want to keep pressing forward and deal with the bad guys? Because down here, I need 3 in order to deal with this other adventuring party. I think I'm in a good position, actually. Let's continue pressing forward. I will pick up this little die modifier. I got to remember to use those little guys. And this is going to be a blank tile. I am stumbling around and bumbling, and I wander in looking for things, but as my gaze clears and the darkness returns to my vision instead of the blinding sunlight, I get a sense of the room, and everything's okay for the time being. Let's press forward onto this tile. Headhunters, your agility and might stats are reduced to 2 for attacking and defending this battle. That is bad. That reduces this down to a 12, and that reduces this die down to an 8. Okay. Good to know. That's also bad because it means that I roll a different set of dice. Because I think this is a standard reduction. Now I do gain the 2 from those 2 that I just crushed. And let's go ahead and resolve this. Level 3. A level 3 fighter here. I'm lucky I'm not facing level 4s yet. And a level 3 rogue. Good. These are all going to have abilities based off of chaining together. The fighter, if the hero rolls a 10 or higher on a might roll while a fighter is in the party, they deal 1 additional might damage. And if the heroes roll a 15 or higher on the first agility attack in combat, they perform 1 more agility attack. So starting here with the rogue, 18 rolling a d20, coming after my 12 this time because my stats have been reduced for this encounter. An 8 is not going to do it. They're unsuccessful. Slashes out in my direction, doesn't connect with anything substantial. Just kind of cuts off a piece of die from me. That does make me frustrated though, and I think I'm going to go. Well, we got to resolve this fighting attack first. 8 rolling a d12 against me for the combined strength. So this hero swings his club. A 6 is going to be enough to go up against my might attack. Not only that, a 10 is going to be enough to do an additional point of damage. This drops down to a 9, which means in this combat situation it is actually a 7, and I'm going to lose another health. Now I could choose to lose another might if I didn't think I was going to upgrade those. I think 4 is the lowest I'm willing to go, because I can regain 1d8, so that gives me a good 50% chance of getting back to full health as long as I don't take more damage. Let's do a strike. Let's do an agility attack. I'll have to roll a d12 to resolve this because my stat has been decreased. No, a d12 won't work. It's got to be magic. Rolling a d6. I'm going to need a perfect hit no matter what. Across the board, these guys are brawny. That being said, I can definitely add some of my tokens to this. That might be a good time to do it. And I do gain 2 more of these. So, but do I want to save that for regenerate? Let's do... maybe next time let's do defensive skin. Let's see what happens. Rolling this. It doesn't matter that I can add die to this. I'm taking another series of attacks. First off, a d20 from the rogue. A 18 is going to be enough. He throws a few blades this time, 3 of them stabbing into my chest, doing, holy crap, doing 1 agility point of damage, dropping me down to a 13, which is really an 11 in this case, and doing 1 point of regular health damage or a 2nd agility point, and I will do that. I will drop down to a 12. Now, I don't actually downgrade my die, except for, I believe, in this situation where this tile reduces the actual number for my attacking die. All right, I'm gonna have to really do something about this. Rolling a d10 for this beast of a man here. Let's see what he's able to get. a 2. A 2 is not going to connect with my might stack. He swings. I grab the club and rip it out of his hands. And I'm going to swing back with a D. My odds, I think, are best with a D6 going against their D8. A 5. A 5 is going to be enough as long as I throw... Let's throw another D6 into this mixture. So a 5 plus a 1. I need to do damage to them. I cannot... I need to get up to an 8. I could exhaust all of these. Let's do it. I tap all of these down, making it so that I now do exactly 8 damage. No, 9 damage, which is enough to get rid of one of them. I want to get rid of the rogue first. I think that makes sense. Rogue is out of here. I don't even have time to think about how I do it. I just grip him and throw him back into the darkness, and I hear a sort of a moan and a crunch, and I'm not sure what happened to him. And moving over here to this behemoth of a man, rolling a D8 this time, looking for a 7. A D4. A D4 is not going to be able to hit me, and I'm going to come back with a solid swing from my D12 on agility. And let's see if this time I can actually do a substantial amount of damage. An 8. An 8 is going to be just enough to grip him by both of his arms, and I just kind of sling him underneath me like I'm doing a hop skip dance from down south. I swing him underneath. I swing him back up. His head kind of cripples against the top of the ceiling, and I continue doing that once, twice, 3 times until I have one very nice swinging shoulder bone. It is the best way to actually disconnect the bone from the arm bone and the shoulder socket from each other without causing any damage to the material that you actually want to use for carving a very, very pretty set of D20. That curve of the shoulder bone is perfect for that large D20 angle. So, that has happened. I am totally using my stats to do regenerate because I get up to 4 as I move, using them immediately. 1d8. Let's get myself some health back. That is not a d8. Let's get myself some health back. I gain 1 point of health, and I can no longer use this card. Good. I didn't want to use the card anyway. And that magic token is not going to aid me at this point, so I might as well take on the adventuring party and then get down here and try to kill the other one, because I am both running out of time. This moves down to a d10 as I move in to this top space. So, first adventuring party, the level 1. You cannot use abilities while the cleric is in the party. There are going to be 2 level 1 clerics. Bad news for me, I must defeat them first. Then there is going to be this the assassin here. And finally, there is going to be 1 rogue, 1 level 1 rogue. I feel like I need to wipe them out as quickly and efficiently as possible. This is the first adventuring party, the first group I must murder along the path. So, they're going to start. Clerics don't do anything. The rogue is going to go first, adding 6 to 16, 24. That is going to be plenty to do a d20 attack against me. And if he gets higher than a 15, I'm in trouble. And I lose 1 ability point. Didn't have any. Oh. I could not have done the health. I'm still going to count the health for the next time I move, but I technically could not have done it because I needed to resolve the cleric's ability before I use that ability point. Whatever the case. Rolling a d20. A 4 is not going to be able to connect. I think they're talking to each other at this point, but then the assassin turns to me. I've stumbled upon them. They were coordinating their plan to dive into the dungeon and strategically steal some of the items and take out the Die Master. And let's see here. The assassin cannot be defeated until all the other heroes are defeated. When they are defeated, when he's on his own, he gains +2 might and agility. And then hero strike. If the hero is successful in an agility attack, deal 1 additional damage. Okay, agility attack coming in. D20 again. A 4 is not going to be enough to do actual agility damage to me. I dodge both of them as they look up from their papers, trying to get a sense of the battle space. And now it is my turn to swing. Magic is going to be their weakest, but magic is also my weakest. A D20 doesn't give me very good odds. We're going to go with a magic roll, because I think a 1 in 6 chance is better than rolling that D20 and just not getting anything. And I can always add my buffs to it. So, a 5. Not enough to do them wounds, but I'm going to add a D8 to this. So I'm going to throw one of my Dominions. A 4. It's going to bring me up to a 9. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, I can debuff some of my stats in order to get to the point where I need to defeat them. But 9, 10, 11, 12, that would be three levels that I need to debuff in agility. And that feels like a lot, but I really don't want to take another cycle of attacks without doing some damage to them. So let's do it. Dropping this down to a 9. And taking out one of these clerics. Assassin's going to go again. 4, 6, 16, 24. They're going to have plenty to do another D20 attack against me. A 6 is not going to be able to hit the 9. He misses. He's arching his bow. Same thing with the assassin here. A 4. They are ineffective. They both rush at me, but I've been through the ringer a few times. I turn my back to them, letting my bronzed cape that's been bronzed by the blood of my enemies block both of their blows, and this has been an elaborate scheme. I've tricked them into getting close to me. I'm going to roll another D6 and do my best to cast magic. 2. Let's toss another Dominion in their direction. A D12. A 7, 7, 8, 9. There, 6, 7, 8, 9. I tie them. So, I have been, and I don't have anything to modify it. Could tick down one more time. Let's do it. Let's commit to this. Dropping down to an 8 to give me enough to actually do damage here. I take out the cleric, but it costs me something. Using magic is not... Oh, it's not actually this. I rolled magic last time. So I need to go up by 3. And I'm using magic. So I drop 2. And then I drop 1 more. I'm down to a 1, which is the lowest I'm able to have on my magic stat. But I was able to defeat them both. This time, the magic is actually absorbing out of my bones. You can see my skin become harder and more withered and more exhausted. My face droops a little bit as I spend the last reserves of my energy casting this spell. The dice that are hanging in a chain around my neck lift up just slightly, and you hear a reverberation from the bottom of the ground, and then 2 pillars of earth strike up, kind of locking the clerics where they stood. Gutting them from the bottom up. And now it is just me, the rogue, and the great assassin. And it is time for me to do some real damage. The assassin is still going to be rolling a full D20. They are moving as fast as they possibly can at this point. They've built up substantial speed, and their blades are just going faster than I can see. Now that both my eyes have been damaged, I'm really only seeing out of one good one, and knife strikes start scraping across my body. That is going to be a damage to my agility, dropping down to 10, and a damage to my health, dropping down to 4, and then the assassin comes up, his blade poised, ready for that final strike, using the rogue's ability to distract me, and the same thing happens. I feel the blade slip in underneath my neck, and luckily trolls are built different than humans. There's no jugular artery there for them to pierce, but it still pierces into my windpipe, and a breath of exhausted air seems to escape, not only from my throat, my mouth, my nose, but also from this seam that has been pierced in the side like a hissing tea kettle. You just hear my lungs expand. And because of that, I'm going to take 1 additional agility damage, dropping all the way down to an 8 because I don't want to take more health damage. Okay. It is my turn to strike back. I no longer have the magic that I need, but my agility is still fairly weak. A D20 has to hit on a perfect strike, and a D10 is not going to work. So I summon the reserves of magic, whatever I have left trapped in my lost, rotting soul, and I do what I can to cast a perfect hit. I feel the power surge from me. My hand seems to grip around the tip of my club, and that blue gemstone starts to glow again, and I thrust it forward. I don't actually make contact, but it's as if the physical force, the movement, the wind pressure that builds up explodes at the tip, and I see the rogue go flying backwards, body rushed and limp against the wall. There's no signs of real damage on the outside of him, but there's a liquid kind of draining from the tip of his nose that doesn't quite look like blood. And then it is the assassin's turn one more time, gaining that stat boost, still keeping him at a d20 as he attacks. An 11 is going to be enough to hit my agility, and he certainly does. And that is going to be 1 additional agility damage, dropping me all the way down to a 6 as his blade re-pierces my neck, thinking maybe he missed the mark the first time. And this time I turn to him, my eyes gazing in his direction, this drained look, this sad expression. This dungeon has been harder and more horrific than I had originally prepared for. And I roll a 4. A 4 is not going to be enough to hit him with magic, but instead I brace myself, and from my corner pocket, just tucked beneath my robe, one small piece of die, a die minion, jumps out, and I let him run down my arm, jump off the tip of my club, off of persuasion, and he raises his blade, a d12 being rolled here. Raises his blade, and he lands onto the shoulder of the assassin, pierces into the body, and then I realize that the robes are hovering off the ground, that there's a floating wind-like substance underneath the assassin, and the die minions strike seem to find no contact, no point of reference. The assassin, with his deep, unfeeling, cold eyes, gazes back at me as if I am some sort of a creature, as if I'm a monster, as if he hates me, and he strikes out at me. I've regained some breath at this point, though, so I duck to the side, the blade missing my neck just slightly, and with all the force and anger that I can muster, I raise my hand once more, grab him by the scruff of his neck. I feel the body start to form underneath him as I hold the jewel around his collar. I rip off his cloak. Standing there before me, what was once a young elven creature transforms into old, withered remains, and I watch as he crumbles to dust. A mist, a breeze in the dungeon, as if this assassin was a collected individual, a curse that had been pulled from the deep soil. As if he was the dead itself combined into a floating, living figure, hell-bent on destruction. And then there's silence, and I take a deep breath, and I scream into the cavernous dungeon, and I swear to myself, these heroes, these so-called creatures, if this is what they are, just dust in my grasp, they shall not leave alive. I will carve their bones into a beautiful set of dice, and I will rest them on my mantelpiece when I escape this cursed land. I begin moving again, this time hell-bent on a purpose, the destruction and the crushing of my mortal enemy. Spending 1 time moving down to 9, moving up 1 of my ability points, and I will rush through the cavern here, journeying all the way down to this tile here, which is a tile that I actually haven't dealt with yet. This is the one that I flipped early on in the game, if you remember. If you are hit this battle, lose an additional health point. I need to go this way, though, so I can collect this health. So, this is going to be a level 1 fighter. After what we've faced so far, this cannot be too bad to deal with. And a level 1 rogue. I think at this point, because I am now barreling down this hallway, watching and seeing the remnants of the destruction that I have wrought, how weak and puny these so-called heroes are, I will be able to handle these guys pretty easily. So a d6 for the rogue, rolling here against my agility, which is now a 6. So a 5 is not going to be able to get him, although I I'm realizing my stats are really low. I might, in fact, be very close to trouble. A might rolling against a 9. That's going to be another d6 for the fighter there. A 1 is not going to be able to connect with me. I am burrowing down so fast that they do not have time to think. Rolling another d20 for my agility because I am, like I said, moving as fast as this body will go. A 5 is not enough to connect with them. Now I do have to up this, giving me a set of 3 that I could use for mitigation if I wanted. But I'm actually really disappointed that 5, we gotta clear through him. If I get hit, I'm gonna be in trouble. Because losing health is gonna be really bad. 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 5, 6. I have 1 left here. And I'm gonna be able to run my way straight through the rogue who's standing out in front there. Okay, I pop him. The fighter, rolling a d4 this time. A 2 is not going to be able to connect, and I continue running with the rogue kind of draped over one of my shoulders, and I train my sights on the fighter here. Going against his agility, a 2, he is not able to move out of the way. I lift him up as well, and then as I'm running, I kind of come over a cavernous area, an area where the hills and the rocks fall off to both sides, and while they're struggling there, I just shrug and let them both fall down the sides while I continue running forward. Running straight into this health, we are going to use that immediately, popping me up to a 6. And this tile here, Righteous. If you are hit by a might attack, lose 1 health and 1 might. This is a level 1 set of fighters, and I gain 2 pips here for those 2 that I just destroyed. Now, a set of fighters here. For each fighter in the party beyond the first, the hero's might and agility attack rolls gain a +1 bonus after rolling. Good to know. Might and agility. So, starting here with might, that is what they're going to be attacking with. A 4, so rolling a d8, and it's going to have a +1 bonus. A 6 up to a 7 against my 9. That is not going to be enough to hit. So I rush into this room. One of them swings, clubbing me across the hip. At this point, I'm so blinded by fury and by anger and by sheer exhaustion that I don't even feel the impact. I turn to him, striking out with persuasion. The blunt force of the tip of it cracks him across the jaw. I see his helmet sort of crumple into the side, and he falls breathless and lifeless. Popping him off of here. 4. Rolling to attack me again. A 3 is not going to connect. I turn and do the same. I have no patience for these individuals at this point. He subtly ducks under the blow, seeing it coming because it was circling around from the last one, and swings back up at me with his club. A 2, again, is not going to be able to hit, and I once again, without changing rhythm, continue the momentum of the swing. A 3, still not going... Continue the momentum of the swing. A 3 is, this time, going to be able to connect. I crack him again across the jaw, just like his companion. From the other side, though, his jaw sort of crumples in the tin can that he's wearing, encasing his head, making it impossible for him to come off. He collapses down and begins pulling and moaning at his helmet as I carry on. Hide. Lose 1 time. If you cannot, instead lose 1 health. 9 going down to 8. 8 going down to 7. And now here I am, standing in front of my final opposition. I take a deep breath, letting my body recover and recuperate. This pops up to a 4. I'm going to lose 3 times, 7, 8, 9, dropping down to a 4 to gain back 3 health. 6, 7, 8. So I can only lose down to 5, because again, that will not buff it on its own. Okay. It's time. It's time to do this. I step into the room, the glowing light of a lantern sort of silhouetting my figure as I step in, this hulking shadow. But as I approach, the heroes can see that I am weakened by the stress and the fight that I've been through. The barbarian must be defeated before the other heroes. So we are facing off with the barbarian a wizard, and a cleric. Now the barbarian must be defeated before the others. Good to know. Good to know, because that wizard is going to be my biggest problem, because he can almost hit me every single time. Oh, but that is not, should be a level 2 wizard, not a infinitely powered level 3 wizard. So I step into that room, breathing heavily, and I know that this is the path out. I gaze down at the barbarian and I think, a fitting end for Trollo Bones. A fitting end for you, my friend. May the gods be with you. And if you lose, I shall carve you into an entire set for me to roll in my fingers, and I will honor you by always rolling d20s. I will make your set a weighted set of die so that your great strength will always be represented. And with that, I become silent and mournful, for a hero must die. But Trollo Bones is not the evil villain that you think he is. He's just a swamp troll who likes click-clacks, who usually hunts for the dead remains of other adventuring parties who got lost in the swamp, or a deer or a bird here or there, and spends his time carving them into dice. Sure, those dice can be used for horrific murder sprees when teleported to a dungeon and hunted by other adventuring parties, but at his heart, it's not who he is. And so he feels mourn that he must kill or be killed, that they view him as an object of scorn, a barrier to their wealth. Who are these people invading and fighting and hunting? Can't they just go live their own lives? And here we go. After those thoughts cross in a slightly slower than average manner, because trolls are not known for being fast on their feet or fast in their mind. And starting here with the warrior, rolling a d20, he steps forward and raises a glinting and well-worn axe handle, with on the end of it what seems like an anvil that's been smushed into the shape of an axe body, dull and hard, but enough to do damage. He strikes out at me, and I block it with the club of persuasion, tinging it off to the side, and he hefts it once again. The wizard from behind him starts muttering and casting those deceitful words that I've heard throughout the course of this adventure, and he rolls a 13. From over the mighty warrior's shoulder, a glowing orb raises up into the air, and stones start pelting me, hitting into my face, blinding my other eye again, making it hard for me to see. And that is going to be enough for me to lose 1 time, for me to lose 1 health, dropping down to a 6. Now, I did just realize that I might not have been losing the appropriate amount of time when the wizards were attacking me. Could have adjusted or mediated for that. Cleric does not attack, and I'm going after... The question is, what do I want to go after this guy with? I feel like a d6 gives me the best odds. It has to be a perfect roll either way. I do not have the chance to mediate it, and I don't have enough power. I could roll doubles, though. Let's do that. Let's spend the ability points I have to go ahead and roll some doubles. 5 and a 2, that is not going to do it. I strike out at him, and I sort of brush against his shoulder, brush back against his helmet, and it's like he was standing there to gauge me up. He turns back at me, and with the heft of his blade, takes 2 hits to defeat the barbarian. After it is hit once, rotate it 90 degrees, and rage. While the barbarian is rotated, he gains plus might. He hefts that blade and strikes back out against me. This time, it finds its home here in my chest. 1 solid piece of damage. I feel the flesh pull back, the muscles straining underneath the weight of disconnected tissue, and I hear the wizard muttering again, larger rocks floating up into the air. This time, though, they dodge and they miss. They don't actually connect with me, and I strike out once more. reaching for the throat of the barbarian, thinking that if I could only get a hold of him, if I could only grasp him, I'll be able to, but my arm, my outstretched arm, is vulnerable to his attack. He swings down, cracking against it, knocking it to the ground. He doesn't actually leave any damage. He slings it backward, opening me up for an attack from the wizard, whose boulders fly through the air, rushing into me, pounding into the side of my head, and I just realized I would have taken additional damage for the last attack. I dropped down to a 4. I'm being pelted by all sides, but if I can only get a hold of this man, if I can only grasp him. They are not known for being speedy or sleuthy either. I reach out one more time in my blind fury. I reach into thin air. He's not where he was. He stepped slightly over to the side, and again I hear the whistle of his axe and a strike crushing against my arm. And this time I feel the shoulder disconnect from the elbow, my arm hanging limply to my side, the socket of skin and air kind of making a wet popping sound as I move things back and forth, trying to get it back into place. I drop down to 3 health. I hear again the cursed words of the wizard, and I've grown to hate those phrases that he mutters, and I spin around looking for him, my eyes still damaged and blinded, and then I see a bright light shine forth. And I feel my body lift up from the air, and I'm floating there. Not able to see the ground or the ceiling. The darkness has begun to encase me, and I'm hovering there, and I lose a moment in time. A memory is forgotten, and then I land back on the ground, slumped as if I have a fish hook through the back of my neck that's just holding me, dangling me in that position. I hear a chuckle, a laughter. The barbarian is stepping closer to me, and I see out of the blurry vision from my popped eye socket, I see his feet kind of come beneath me, and I swing at him again. 3 is not enough. I'm swinging at midair, that fish hook still leaving me levitated, raised off the ground just slightly, my feet dangling and rushing. I reach up towards my necklace where my dice are, or where they used to be, and I find that severed from my chest with the strike from the barbarian, my necklace, my chain of dice, the memory of my best friend is no longer there. I hear the whistle of the axe again. And from beneath my gaze, I see the axe one more time, glinting, passing through the feet, torchlight shining off of it. It strikes me in my collarbone, and I feel my arm this time separate from my body. And once again I reach, looking for the necklace, but it's not there. I take a deep breath out, hunting for it on the ground anywhere. These chains I wear, these dice I wear, these memories of people I cared about, I use them to honor, and they're not to be found. And then I hear that cursed muttering again, the whispers in the dark. And the light seems to shine, and everything for one moment seems as if it's okay. The hook drops from my back. I begin to fall, but I'm caught before I land at the boots of the barbarian. And I'm spun around, and I look up, and then I begin to float. And I realize that I have separated from a shape, and my eyesight starts to restore itself, and I feel a sense of vertigo, a hovering, a spinning feeling, and then I can see beneath me a very familiar shape. Hands reached out as far as they could extend, briefly touching the edge of a string of carved dice. And I realize that it's me, dead there on the ground, Trollo bones. And I float up above the cavern, float through the tunnels, find seams and cracks that lead to daylight, and as I journey out, my vision fully restored, I see the swamp that I called home, mere feet away from me, just above me where I died, in the soil. That damp moisture that was dripping down, that is my home. And I've discovered that there is more than one way to leave the Die Master's games. In fact, maybe the only true way is this. Either way, I'll never know. I have lost this game. That was fun. I like this. I have a fun time. It is simple enough when it comes to like the gameplay and the flow that I can be dumb and thematic and experience it and just have a good time. But it also has some good weight and good dice mitigation. I really enjoy the way that all of your dice here are used to level up and indicate stats, and you can use your ability and chain things. And are there ways I could have played this better? Absolutely. But this is a fun, chaotic romp through a little bit of luck, through a decent amount of strategy, and a nice, accessible, lightweight solo player game where if you just want to be the bad guy for a bit, you want to journey through and roll some dice and have a good time, hey, this is one to explore. If you've watched to this point, thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed the storytelling. I'm trying to do maybe a mix more of thematics into my videos, and so I just kind of went with it. It was feeling good. I was having fun, so why not bury into it? Thank you for being here. Remember to leave a comment down below letting me know what creatures you would like to see venture into the cavern. Of course, the Quackalope has got to be one of them. And don't forget to like and subscribe, but whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. We'll see you next time. Thank you.